There are stories in the Bible that people hear so often, they stop truly seeing them. Stories reduced to simple lessons, simple morals, simple endings, but hidden beneath familiar words are truths so deep, they can completely change the way a person sees themselves. And perhaps no story has been misunderstood more than the story of the prodigal son. Because this was never only a story about rebellion. It was a story about emptiness, shame, identity, and the terrifying human fear of wondering whether it is too late to come home. Jesus told this story to a crowd filled with different kinds of people. Religious leaders, sinners, outcasts, people convinced they understood God, and people convinced God wanted nothing to do with them. And somewhere in that crowd were people carrying secret guilt, private shame, hidden failures, the kind people smile through publicly while suffering silently inside. And perhaps that is why Jesus began telling this story, because he understood something humanity still struggles with today. Many people do not know how to receive mercy. The story begins with a son asking for his inheritance early.
Text-to-speech platform by vb.vn.
At first glance, this sounds almost ordinary. But in that culture, it was deeply offensive. It was essentially saying, I want what belongs to you, without waiting for you to die. A rejection not only of authority, but of relationship itself. And yet, the father let him leave. That detail matters, because love does not force itself onto people. Sometimes people must walk away before they understand what they abandoned. The son entered a distant country, a place filled with excitement, freedom, pleasure, escape. At first, life likely felt thrilling. No boundaries, no responsibility, no rules. And honestly, this part of the story still reflects modern life powerfully. Because many people spend years chasing things they believe will finally satisfy them. Money, attention, pleasure, success, validation, distraction. Always searching for something to fill the emptiness inside. And for a while, it works. At least on the surface. But eventually, the illusion collapses. The money disappeared. The friends vanished. A famine struck the land. And suddenly, the son found himself completely alone. Broken. Hungry. Desperate. The same world that once welcomed him now ignored him. And perhaps one of the cruelest truths about life is this. Some environments celebrate people while they are useful, then abandon them once they are broken. Eventually, the son became so desperate. He took a job feeding pigs. Now for the original audience listening to Jesus. This detail was shocking. Pigs were considered unclean animals. To end up feeding pigs meant total humiliation, total collapse. And the Bible says something heartbreaking. He became so hungry. He longed to eat the food given to the pigs. That is how far he had fallen. And maybe many people watching this understand that feeling emotionally.
Vietnam's top text-to-speech solution from vb.vn.
Not necessarily financially, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally. The feeling of looking at your life and wondering, how did I end up here? Then came the turning point. The Bible says, he came to himself. Think about those words carefully. He came to himself. Because perhaps the deepest form of lostness is not losing money, or status, or comfort. Perhaps the deepest form of lostness is losing yourself. For the first time in a long while, the son saw reality clearly. He remembered his father's house. Not just the wealth, not just the safety, but the love. And suddenly, hope began fighting through despair. But shame still remained. That is important. Because shame convinces people they no longer deserve love. The son rehearsed a speech before returning home. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Did you notice that? He no longer saw himself as family. Failure had changed his identity. And millions of people still live with that same emotional wound today. A mistake becomes an identity. A failure becomes a label. A painful season becomes permanent self-hatred. That is what shame does. It convinces human beings they are no longer worthy of belonging. Then came the most powerful moment in the story. The son began walking home. Probably exhausted. Dirty. Terrified.
Voice generated by VB.VN.
Unsure how he would be received. But while he was still far away, his father saw him. That means the father had been watching, waiting, hoping. And then something unexpected happened. The father ran. In that culture, respected older men did not run publicly. But love moved faster than dignity. The father embraced him before the apology was even finished. Before punishment. Before explanation. Before repayment. And maybe this is the part most people misunderstand. The story is not primarily about how sinful the son became. It is about how radically compassionate the father was. The father restored him completely. A robe. A ring. A celebration. Not because the son earned restoration, but because relationship mattered more than failure. And perhaps this is one of the hardest truths for human beings to accept. Grace feels unfair. Because people naturally believe love must be earned, deserved, proven. But the heart of the story reveals something deeper. Mercy is most powerful when given to the undeserving. But then Jesus introduced another character. The older brother. And this is where the story becomes even more uncomfortable. Because while the younger son was lost through rebellion, the older brother was lost through pride. He became angry seeing mercy given freely. Resentful. Bitter. And suddenly the story exposed two different kinds of brokenness.
Voice generated by VB.VN.
One obvious. One hidden. One rebellious. One self-righteous. And perhaps Jesus included this because many people judge visible failures, while secretly carrying darkness of their own. Pride. Bitterness. Judgment. Coldness. So what is the real meaning of this story? Maybe it is this. No matter how far someone falls, the possibility of return still exists. Not because human beings are perfect, but because mercy is greater than shame. And perhaps tonight, someone listening feels far from peace, far from faith, far from hope. But maybe this story survives thousands of years for one reason. To remind broken people that home is not always as far away as they think. Which part of the story hurt you the most? The son's failure? Or the father's unconditional love? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Sacred Truth for more cinematic journeys through the deepest stories in the Bible. And if this message touched your heart tonight, share it with someone who may need hope right now. Because sometimes, the people furthest from peace are secretly longing to come home.
AI voice powered by VB.VN.